Going over the technical details once again, each candidate will receive 90 seconds to introduce themselves, 60 seconds to answer each of the community source questions, with 30 seconds of rebuttal at the very end for the last candidate in that question, and then 30 seconds for closing comments. Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. My name is Mark Plaster. You can remember it. It's like plaster on the wall or plaster in the cast. I was the son of a preacher, unfortunately, so as you can imagine, it's kind of hard to get a date as the son of Pastor Plaster. But I spent my life as a non-politician. I spent 30 years as an emergency physician. I gained a law degree, and as a result of that, developed a business in law, medical legal publishing. Eventually started a business and developed a small publishing company. My life was changed, however, in 2001 when I joined the Navy Reserve Medical Corps and ended up going to Iraq at the same time as my son as the head of the shock trauma platoon for the Marine Corps. I came home a changed man because I came home in love with Marines and for our veterans. And I found out that our veterans really, truly are not being cared for. At that time, there was a 700-day wait for veterans to get into the VA for their first benefits. And I found that our career politicians really were part of the problem. It was the bureaucracy. And the VA really was an example of the kinds of bureaucracy that was afflicting the entire country. I didn't think that anyone could challenge the one-party rule here in Maryland, and so I really didn't think anything could be done until Larry Hogan won the election. And now I think we have an electorate that is interested in hearing both sides of the question. So I'm here tonight to ask you to hear both sides, and I think we can do that respectfully.
Thank you, Dr. Plaster. Congressman Sarbanes.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I want to thank the PTA, and I want to thank the SAVIC Community Association for putting this together. Howard County has some of the most engaged citizens, I think, all across the 3rd District. They're people who want to be informed. They want to make a clear judgment about who they should send to Congress or any other seat for that matter. I don't take any election for granted. I feel like every 2 years, when I put my hat in the ring, I want to be judged on whether I'm working hard for the residents of the 3rd District. And I've tried to do that. I've tried to do that when it comes to veterans issues. I've tried to do that when it comes to helping small businesses, looking out for the Chesapeake Bay and making sure our environment is protected. I've tried to do that in terms of lifting up people who feel disconnected right now. There's a lot of people in America, and there's a lot of people in the 3rd District who feel like Washington is not listening to them, that their voice is not counted, and that big money and special interests are kind of calling the shots. And we got to give people their voice back. We got to give people that sense that they have power in their own democracy, and that they're respected by the system, and that they're respected by the candidates who put their names forward to represent them. And I hope by the end of the evening you'll feel that I'm doing my best to respect the people in my district and to serve them well. Thank you all for having us tonight.
Thank you, Congressman Sarbanes. You will receive the first question. This is 60 seconds to respond to this question. The Washington Post called Maryland Congressional District 3 the 2nd most gerrymandered district in America. Why did this happen, and how will you fix it?
Well, I actually support a piece of legislation called the Redistricting Reform Act, which would create a national solution. It's what was just mentioned by Dutch Rupersberger. The idea here is that you require every single state in the country to set up an independent, nonpartisan, non-politicized commission that would decide how to draw the lines. You have to do it nationally, because if you fix it in one state and you don't fix it in other states, you just make the politics even worse. And so I'm a co-sponsor of that legislation. I think it's part of a whole set of reforms that we need to put in place. This gets to what I said initially. People don't feel respected. They don't feel like their voice is heard. Gerrymandering is part of that problem. So yeah, my district looks very strange when you look at a map. There's no question about it. And we could have a better process for drawing districts in Maryland and around the country, and I support that kind of reform. Hopefully we'll get some Republicans to support that bill in Washington. Right now we don't have any Republican co-sponsors.
Thank you, Congressman Sarbanes. Dr. Plaster?
John, you're absolutely correct. And this, except one thing. I think we are the most gerrymandered district in the country. I think we're number one. PBS NewsHour came down and spent several hours riding around with us on our campaign bus, which we got so that we could drive all over this crazy district to try to campaign. It was done that way to keep incumbents in place. You got to realize that. I'd be happy to co-sponsor your bill in Congress, okay? If you will also be happy to support the governor's initiative to set rules for redistricting in Maryland. Because the truth is fairness. The Constitution places the responsibility for the lines with the states. There's no way to get around that, okay? What you can do is have rules on how you draw the lines. We're not going to fight about where the lines are. We need to have rules about how you draw the lines. And I'll be glad to support that in Washington and Maryland as well.
Thank you, Dr. Plaster. Congressman Sarbanes, you have 30 seconds.
Well, I think the kind of independent redistricting commission that the governor has proposed is the kind you would want to see put in place in all states in the country. But like I said, you got to make sure everybody's doing it, because if you just do it in certain places and not others, you're just going to amp up the politics of gerrymandering. So we need that national solution. And under the Constitution, Congress has the ability to regulate the time, place, and manner of voting and drawing those kinds of districts in the country. So we can mandate that every state set up this kind of independent commission according to certain guidelines, and then each state would have to abide by those requirements, and we'd have a better system for drawing districts in the country.
Thank you, Congressman Sarbanes. Dr. Plaster, Congressman Sarbanes mentioned earlier that special interests are affecting our leadership. And American youth increasingly believe our congressional leadership are corrupted due to these special interests. Are they right, and what would you do to fight any corruption in our leadership?
Earlier, you asked a question that was very similar to this. It was about people feeling that the government wasn't working for them, which is kind of a restatement of this sort of issue. One of the problems that we have is we've got too many career politicians. We've got people who have been in office for generations. And I'm sorry, I realize your father has a great name, but the fact is that I believe, and I would suspect a lot of these folks believe, that the reason why you're here is because your name is Sarbanes and not Smith. And I think that there's a problem with careerism in politics. People start to shape their policies so they can stay in office, get a bigger committee, ascend to the Senate, do whatever. And I think that one of the things we need is term limits. And I'd be all for term limits.
Thank you, Dr. Plaster. Congressman Sarbanes, you have 60 seconds.
You know, look, there's no question people feel like big money is running the show in Washington, and they're right about that. Look at the pharmaceutical industry. We can't negotiate with them because they got a special provision put into the law that says Medicare can't negotiate with the pharmaceutical industry. So taxpayers are paying tens of billions of dollars more every year because we can't get that provision, and because they're the ones that are writing the campaign checks. You look at the oil and gas industry. You look at Wall Street. They're all writing these campaign checks because the people don't own the government anymore in this country. So we've got to come up with really dramatic change and reform the way we fund campaigns in the system. And I support a small donor matching system that would do that, that would lift up everyday citizens, that would make them feel like they have power, they have a voice. Now Mark will say, well, you're talking about government-supported campaigns, right? And why would anyone want to do that? Well, you got a choice. The campaigns can be paid for by the special interests like Wall Street and pharma and big oil and gas, in which case your government will work for them. Or you can decide that you want to be the ones that power the campaigns with small donor contributions and matching funds that come in behind it. And if we do that, if the public is the one that calls the shots, then that's where the accountability will be. So I support that kind of reform to give a voice back to the people.
Thank you, Congressman Sarbanes. Dr. Plaster, you have 60 seconds for rebuttal.
With all due respect, you're being a little bit disingenuous. The law firm that is one of the major donors for your campaign has taken millions of dollars from lobbying firms. And so I think that you need to be, plus you sit on a $1 million cash mountain of cash, while a challenger has to beat out and is barely, in the last 2 cycles, people faced you with 500 and 5,000. It's almost impossible to match the kinds of money that you've gotten. And to say that it came through law firms, I'm sorry, I'm not buying that.
Thank you. The next question will begin with Congressman Sarbanes. You have 60 seconds. The war on terror is a clear national priority. Similar question previously. But veterans sometimes disappear on their return back. What will you do to protect our veterans when they're back home?
Well, given the sacrifice that our veterans make when they step forward, when they say, "Send me," our first responsibility, our highest responsibility, is to our veterans when they come back to make sure that they get the kind of benefits that they deserve, that we're reaching out, that we're lifting up them, their families, and their communities. And I've tried to do that. I have looked at ways to cut through the red tape that our veterans face. I'm very proud that we introduced legislation and then we worked with federal agencies so that veterans who get 100% disability rating from the VA can go over to Social Security and have an expedited process for also getting their benefits from Social Security. We cut through the red tape. In the last 3 years, 16,000 veterans have benefited from that expedited process that we were able to get put in place because we focused in on that red tape and we tried to cut through that red tape. And that's just one example of how we have to serve our veterans. And you do that by listening carefully to their concerns and their needs, and then going to Washington and trying to make a difference on their behalf.
Thank you, Congressman Sarbanes. Dr. Plaster.
16,000 veterans over 3 years across the country. That's 5,000 veterans. There are over 60,000 veterans in this district alone. When I returned from Iraq in '03, they were facing a 700-day wait to get in. Most recently, John Sarbanes voted for the second time against the VA Accountability Act, which would address the issue of the Veterans Administration and VA hospitals not being responsive to veterans. And that affects millions of veterans, not a few thousand. I appreciate the BRAVE Act, but it's window dressing. It's the kind of thing that politicians do all the time. Okay, we need to address the fundamentals, which means if you work in the VA, I would imagine you could probably point out the people who are doing the work and the people who aren't. We need to be able to address those personnel questions, and that was done fairly through the VA Accountability Act, and he voted against it.
30 seconds, Congressman Sarbanes.
Yeah, I'm sorry Mark considers it window dressing what we did with the BRAVE Act. I'm sure if you talk to any one of those 16,000 veterans, they wouldn't think it was window dressing, that we helped speed up the process by which they could get their benefits. I did vote against that bill. I'll tell you why I voted against it. Because if you've got someone who's not doing the job, you should be able to get rid of them and make it stick. And one of the problems was the new procedures they put in place under that law did not adhere to due process. And courts were going to throw out, and they've already started throwing out, some of the dismissals of people that should be gone from the VA. So we got to have a good process in place for getting rid of people so that it can't be challenged in court and overturned so that we can fix and improve the VA. That's why I took the position I did.
Thank you, Congressman Sarbanes. Dr. Plaster, my apologies. Hillary and Trump have proven particularly divisive this election. Same question as our last candidates. Do you support your party's nominee for president?
If it's not clear to you already, Jesus is not on the ballot this year. Neither is Mother Teresa. Okay? We've argued a lot about the temperaments of the various candidates and the conversations that occur when they think they're private. I know Secret Service men who were dedicated to give their lives for Hillary Clinton, and she treated like there were so many slaves. Let's look at the platforms, can we, of the two parties? That's what I want you to judge both of these people by, and I think that you will find that the candidate from the Republican candidate has a platform that is for lower taxes, more growth, more security of our border, things that I think that have broad-based support across the country. You may not agree with all of it, but I think that you'll find that that platform is something, you may not agree with his personality, but I think you can get behind his platform.
Thank you, Dr. Plaster. Congressman Sarbanes?
Yeah, I do support the top of the ticket, Hillary Clinton. I think she has the right experience to be president. I mean, she has a long tenure of being part of important issues in our public sector. She's worked hard from day one. I think she has core values that are focused on issues that affect children and families and working people in this country from the earliest days. She demonstrated her commitment to that. And I think she has the temperament that we need. Somebody who's thoughtful and solid and steady and will get the facts and will figure out what kind of action needs to be taken. Not somebody who will be impulsive in what has become a very unstable world. We need that kind of steady hand. She's been in the Situation Room. She knows how to handle these pressures that will come as the next President of the United States. And I think she'll be a good president, and I'm proud to support her.
Thank you, Congressman Sarbanes. 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Since we're both supporting our candidates, I think there's no need to rebut that.
I'm perfectly happy with that. Then you can be 30 seconds for closing statements.
It's very clear that I'm asking you to vote for someone who hasn't been in office. And the reason for that is I believe that we need non-career politicians. I've spent 30 years caring for patients in private business, building a business, and I've put my life on the line caring for our soldiers in the field. We have career politicians who are writing healthcare policy who've never treated patients, writing business policy who've never owned a business, and writing national security policy who have no skin in that game. I ask you to vote for me. I will change that.
Thank you, Dr. Plaster. Congressman Sarbanes, 30 seconds.
Yeah, again, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I spent 20 years before I ran for Congress working in the private sector, representing healthcare providers, physician groups, doctors, hospitals, and so forth. That's how I got insight into the healthcare system. I spent 7 years working for the State Department of Education, focused on reform in Baltimore City to improve teaching there and to improve the schools. I was on the board of 4 nonprofits and president of 2 of them that were doing work in the communities, trying to lift these communities up. And I ran for Congress because I saw an opportunity to bring all of that experience and perspective to bear and make a difference for people in Washington. So I hope you'll consider that when you go out and vote on November 8th. Thank you all for coming this evening.
Thank you to both of our candidates. Congratulations to the Queen and the House of Representatives. I'd like to take a brief moment to thank the people that made this night possible. Local events exist only in the tireless dedication and passion of a select few. Thank you, Susan, Lisa, and Brent. Let's have a round of applause for them. They've really done a great job. Thank you also to all of our volunteers tonight, and thank you to the continued support of the Savage Community Association and Forest Ridge PTA. And last but certainly not least, thank you to all of our candidates and to all of you in attendance. That concludes our program for this evening. Thank you, and have a good night.